The referee. They're gonna stop this. They're gonna stop.
Welcome to the mother relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The latest from WBC interim champion in the women's lightweight division, Mayra Moneo, who in so many words stated that her upcoming fight with Caroline Dubois has been once again postponed. Via her Instagram account, she stated it was supposed to go down in April, then it got pushed to June.
Now it's been pushed back again.
Why?
Well, according to Mayra, Caroline Dubois has fallen ill. Apparently she's sick, so they're not going to be fighting this weekend.
That was supposed to be going down this weekend.
In hindsight, I suppose it's self-explanatory that Fight Week is here, and we never heard an official announcement or saw an official graphic for what's supposed to be Caroline Dubois versus Mayra Moneo. In truth, it's really not Mayra's loss more than Caroline, because Mayra's already WBC interim champion. This was going to be a defense of that title for her, and the value of that title is it keeps you in position to pick up the full title that Katie Taylor still holds, but sooner or later she's going to vacate, because I don't think Katie's coming back to 135.
I don't think she's going to. Sooner or later, she's going to have to drop the WBC title. When she does, if Mayra's still interim champion, she will either be elevated to full champion, or she'll get the chance to fight for the newly vacated title. Had she fought Caroline this weekend, if she were going to, well, I think Caroline would have beat her. And if Caroline would have beat her, she would have lost that WBC interim title. So this could be a blessing in disguise for Mayra.
Yeah, but what about the money she would have made?
Think about it this way. She's not going to get to make money this weekend as a defending WBC interim champion, but if and when this opportunity rolls around again, she may be a full champion, and she might be able to get a better purse as a full champion instead of just an interim champion. So once again, it could be a blessing in disguise.
The landscape is changing at 135. There are already two newly crowned champions at this weight. There's Rhiannon Dixon, newly crowned WBO champion, Beatrice Ferreira, newly crowned IBF champion.
They're both with Matchroom. Caroline's with Boxer.
Why hasn't Katie Taylor dropped that title yet?
It could be to prevent the WBC title and the WBA title that Katie Taylor still holds. It could be to prevent those two titles from washing up on the shores of a rival promotional outfit, because we know that Boxer is targeting those titles.
You think they would do that?
I don't put nothing past nobody, least of all in the sport of boxing. It's a dirty business, very competitive, and if I had to guess why Katie hasn't dropped those two titles yet, even though eventually I think she's going to, it's to make things that much harder for the rival competition, the people over there at Boxer, because there's no reason for her to hang on to them. Her fight with Amanda Serrano, her rematch, has been rescheduled. It's going down later on this year. That means
she won't be returning to lightweight at any point this year.
She will sit out all of the summer months into the fall when the rematch with Amanda takes place, and that's taking place at 140, not 135.
So there's no real reason for her to still hang on to those two titles, the WBC and the WBA, at lightweight, but she's still holding on to them.
I can't really reconcile why, unless she's being instructed to do so to make it that much harder for Boxer's fighters, Boxer's Valkyries, to get their hands on them, because they want to.
Yeah.
And so far, Matchroom has two newly crowned champions on their side of the street, but Caroline is still waiting for her turn over there at Boxer.
When is she gonna get it?
I don't know. I suppose that the people at Boxer may make some effort to reschedule the fight with Mayra Moneo for a later date, sometime over the summer months when Caroline has recovered from whatever it is she's got.
But that's the latest.
Dubois versus Moneo has been postponed.
All right, well, I know he's very focused, but you have an update on Gervonta Davis in regards to his status for today.
I want to apologize to the fans that he can't make it at this moment because he's been delayed. But we're going to make it up to y'all fight night. Trust what I'm saying to y'all. Y'all want to see this performance that he's going to put on for the fan.
All right, so Gervonta Davis delayed and unable to make it here to the grand arrivals. We look forward to seeing Tank throughout the week. But Calvin, when it comes to his mentality, preparing for Frank Martin, how big of a fight is this for Tank?
It's serious because it's a different type of fight.
That was Calvin Ford's attempt yesterday to get in front of Gervonta Davis's no-show at what were the grand arrivals. Though it's too little and too late because Gervonta took to his own social media and he told everybody why he wasn't coming because the promotion for the fight has been ass.
It's disrespectful to the fans and the people that showed up to see the fighters.
But it's no less than I expect from a piece of shit like Gervonta Davis. So in my previous video, we talked about why the promotion has been lackluster. What's the difference between the PBC's current situation and what their situation was when they still had Showtime bankrolling their shows? We talked about that.
Talk about this.
The promotion for this show being lackluster, when it doesn't do over 1 million buys, or 1 million, or even 500,000, if it doesn't do that, is it because of the lack of promotion?
No.
No. Because this pay-per-view was never going to do the numbers that Gervonta did with Ryan last year.
What the fuck did you think? That every pay-per-view he fought in moving forward was going to do 1 million?
Or even 500,000. I can already hear it now. The excuses.
What?
That if the numbers are shit for this weekend's pay-per-view, it's because of the lack of promotion.
Who's promoting this show?
Tom Brown. Same guy who promoted Gervonta Davis's last show. And the show before that.
That didn't change.
Remember that after the Rolly Romero fight, Gervonta Davis parted ways with Mayweather Promotions, and the Hector Luis Garcia fight, the more successful Ryan Garcia fight, those fights were promoted by Tom Brown Promotions. This fight is being promoted by Tom Brown.
So if the promotion is seemingly lackluster,
do we levy that criticism towards Tom Brown? Or do we levy it towards Gervonta Davis himself?
doesn't he have his own promotional company? GTD Promotions? Gervonta Tank Davis Promotions?
It's not a real promotional company.
Well, you think Gervonta Davis is a promoter? He puts on his promoter hat, he starts promoting fights?
Get the fuck out of here.
It's a tax write-off if it's anything, but no, he's not an actual promoter that puts on actual shows, brokering actual deals with actual networks that give him a budget to put on shows. No!
No, GTD Promotions is tantamount to a play phone you would give a child.
It's all pretend.
It's a pretend promotional outfit so that Gervonta can pretend he's any kind of a promoter.
I think at its very best, it's a tax write-off.
But he's not actually the one at the helm of promotion, even for his own fights. No, Tom Brown is promoting this fight. The same Tom Brown that promoted the last one.
So when it doesn't do over 1 million buys like the last one did, is it because of the promotion?
That depends. Did the last one do over 1 million buys because of the promotion? Is that what it was? That's why people bought it. Because of how it was promoted? Or because of who Gervonta Davis was fighting? Ryan Garcia and his sizable social media following. Is that what got them over the hump? Is that what got that over the line? Because Gervonta was on pay-per-view 5 times before he ever laid a glove on Ryan, and not a single one of those pay-per-views ever came close to 1 million or even 500,000 pay-per-view buys.
And this one won't either.
Frank Martin fight? You can think Frank Martin is a solid choice. You can think that Frank is a solid fighter. What he's not is a marquee fighter, a marquee attraction. Thus, selling the pay-per-view would fall on Gervonta Davis. Gervonta himself, which shouldn't be a problem, since some people think he's the face of boxing.
More than Canelo.
Isn't that what they say on social media? Isn't that what some content creators here on YouTube would have you believe? That in the American market, Gervonta Davis is the face of boxing, not Canelo Alvarez. Well, then Gervonta shouldn't have a problem this weekend, should he?
No.
His legions,
Yes.
oceans of fans should keep up with his fights and his fight news so religiously that it doesn't all boil down to promotion, that it's a given. When he's fighting, they're showing up.
Yeah.
If he really were the face of boxing, but he's not.
Mediocre!
Gervonta is a mediocre fighter.
Mediocre!
Mediocre, mediocre,
Mierne.
mediocre.
Mediocre.
Mediocre!
With a mediocre fan base that has every intention of stealing, streaming his fight, they're not supporting him. They're not going to support him anyway.
Mediocre!
They haven't been supporting him anyway. Without Ryan Garcia, his numbers hovered at or around 200,000 buys. That's where they plateaued.
What do you think this weekend's fight is going to do?
Mediocre!
So the little butterball skipped the press conference, the stress conference.
I bet he's stressed.
I warned you last year. It's very important who Gervonta Davis faces next. You can't go from Ryan Garcia to one of them Joe Blows on your side of the street. If you want to keep the momentum going, you got to fight somebody good. He doesn't want to do that.
You don't think Frank Martin is good?
I think Shakur Stevenson is better, and I think Shakur Stevenson's a little bit more well-known. He's got more of a profile.
He's a champion.
And what's Frank Martin?
The guy who avoided him late last year. The guy who swerved him.
You think I haven't noticed that people are giving Shakur Stevenson shit over who he's fighting next? Who he was supposed to be fighting last year was Frank Martin.
You guys are perfectly okay with Frank swerving him.
Cowards.
If you believed in yourself and you believed in your boxing, you would have fought Shakur Stevenson, fought him, beat him, and you would have had plenty of time to fight Gervonta Davis.
Would have still had plenty of time to fight him because that was supposed to go down when? September or around there of last year? We're in June. It was never an either-or situation. You treated it like an either-or situation because you didn't believe you could win. And you're the guy they put in the ring with Gervonta Davis after he fights Ryan.
Ridiculous.
What is this going to bring in at the box office? I don't know.
Yeah.
I think they'd be lucky to come in at just under 400,000 maybe, but context is key. You've got two headliners fighting on this card.
Two of them.
It's not just Gervonta Davis. David Benavidez is on here.
So if you have the both of them fighting on the same show,
That's the best you can do? See how it does, because Gervonta doesn't seem to be impressed. No, he doesn't seem to be impressed with the promotion. And finally, ahead of this weekend's Cruiserweight contest, the Cruiserweight title fight between Chris Billam-Smith and Richard Riakporhe, Billam-Smith always assumed a rematch with Riakporhe would occur, but not like this. Riakporhe challenges the WBO Cruiserweight champion, a die-hard Bournemouth soccer fan who ultimately doesn't care who Riakporhe cheers for on a Saturday afternoon. Riakporhe defeated CBS via a split decision 5 years ago, and now Billam-Smith is the WBO champion and Riakporhe is his mandatory challenger. It's a given that the champion is improved. But what of the challenger? I think he's tidied things up a bit, Billam-Smith said. I do think he does some things better, but overall, I think it's not going to benefit him in this fight. I think that rawness he had before got him out of a lot of situations. If he was in the same situation in the Sam Hyde fight, who he stopped in 8 rounds, where he is now, not saying the same ability, but at that level, then he wouldn't have had that rawness to get him out of it. I was a different person back then when we first boxed, let alone a different fighter. So it's hard to compare that fight. But that rawness got him out of a lot of situations. He actually said to me when we were filming some pre-fight stuff that I actually lose a lot of rounds. That's rich.
he does lose a lot of rounds.
He does lose a lot of rounds, and he does get hit quite a bit. I've got nothing against Chris Billam-Smith. He seems like a good kid, but I saw him in the Masternak fight, and I saw a Masternak who's approaching 40 land one too many punches for my liking. I don't actually know that Chris Billam-Smith really has improved so much as the stars aligned when he fought Lawrence Okolie. The stars just aligned for him to lift that WBO title from that guy. Remember that Lawrence used to be his stablemate. They used to both train under Shane McGuigan. So you had the inside track on that guy in a way that you don't have it on this guy. Oh yeah, you fought him before.
Richard Riakporhe.
But when you did, he beat you. Chris Billam-Smith said, he being Richard Riakporhe, he's lost a lot of rounds and been down in a lot of his fights, and he's pulled it out the bag. Against lower competition than what I've done. He's tidied things up in a few areas, but I don't think it's going to benefit him in the slightest.
Who's the best guy that Chris Billam-Smith fought?
Lawrence Okolie, and Chris Billam-Smith beat Lawrence Okolie. Now, who's the best guy that Richard Riakporhe has fought?
Chris Billam-Smith. He beat Chris Billam-Smith.
What are we doing?
Well, Chris says that he's fought a better caliber, just better quality of fighters than Richard Riakporhe has fought. And I'm debating as to whether or not that's true because whoever you fought, he already fought you. And he already beat you. So, is that true?
I'm not sure. Chris Billam-Smith continued, I assumed as long as he kept winning, then our paths would cross, Billam-Smith said. I thought I'd end up fighting him for his world title because of the nature of the beast. He's unbeaten. He's getting talked about. Him and Lawrence was getting built up. He was the mandatory for the IBF, and I thought if he can get over the line with that, then I'd fight him. I jumped in the ring after the Krzysztof Glowacki fight, which Riakporhe won in 4 rounds in January of last year, thinking hopefully we can get a unification in. But in my head I was thinking I would have to fight him for his world title. But instead, he boxed Dylan Briggion for 2 rounds on a nothing fight on an undercard in Wolverhampton. And I've beaten Lawrence since then for the world title and defended it against Matthias Masternak. So I thought, our paths would cross. I didn't think it would be me making my second defense of my world title against him as my mandatory. Riakporhe denies that he has turned big fights down, having been linked with the IBF champion Jai Opataya and former WBA ruler Arsene Goulamarian. Whatever the details of the past negotiations, the challenger believes his time is now. While Billam-Smith remains satisfied, he grasped his opportunity when it came his way last May. Around the time he, Riakporhe, turned down Opataya, we were trying to get Opataya for the stadium fight in Bournemouth. We were trying to get Goulamarian, and I know the team was working hard. I think the issue was managers.
Which Jai Opataya openly spoke about.
Being honest, I don't have a rooting interest in either fighter. I'm not a bigger fan of this guy more than that guy. I just think Richard Riakporhe is going to get the job done this weekend because he's not in unfamiliar territory. And Chris hasn't really improved all that much when you consider how he looked with Matthias Masternak. No, he still gets hit too much, and I feel like Richard.
He's gotten better at delivering his power and his variety of punches.
I think he's going to get Chris Billam-Smith. Chris Billam-Smith, who detailed how it is we got here and what took place. Chris said, obviously, we didn't want to fight Lawrence because of the mutual respect between us as a team, and Lawrence, who was a former campmate with trainer Shane McGuigan, he never fell out with Shane or anything like that. But then we needed a stadium for a world title. It made sense. Lawrence was the next in line. He just boxed. He was unscathed. So we knew he had 9 weeks, and it was probably a better thing for him because he was already in shape going into camp, having just beaten David Light.
Right.
So if you're interested in watching this thing this Saturday, they're going to be streaming it via Peacock. That's NBC's streaming platform, a peculiar partnership when you think about it. They picked up the U.S. rights to boxers' fights.
But it's not in addition to anything. Any other boxing programming from any other promotional outfit elsewhere in the world. It's really just boxer shows, boxer fights.
I just would have thought that if Peacock were going to endeavor into the world of boxing, they would have added a little more to their catalog. In any event, that's where you can watch it here in America, and I expect that Richard Riakporhe will win the fight. He won the first one. I'm picking him to win the second. Beyond that, the winner of the fight is rumored to be facing Jai Opataya in that big stadium fight all the way out there in September.
Supposed to be headlined by Anthony Joshua against Daniel Dubois. That's going to be a hell of a card if it happens that way.
And if it happens that way, and the winner of this weekend's fight faces Jai Opataya next, I think Jai Opataya beats them. Look, these are good kids, Richard Riakporhe and Chris Billam-Smith, but they're not on Jai's level. They don't have his ability, his ferocity,
power,
athleticism, and tack on that he's a southpaw. I think he's on another level to these two guys. That's what I think. So irrespective of who fights him, he beats them.
And as dangerous as that fight is, it still pays out the best. It's the best money in town because Jai Opataya is backed by Turki Al-Sheikh. So yeah, it's risky.
But if you want to make money at cruiserweight, serious money, you have to risk something.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained.